How well does gasket sealer work to fix a leaky bleeder screw? 5 months ago, I made a video about sealing your bleeder screw if you have a leaky brake issue with your brake system with air bubbles leaking. And I got some comments from people saying it's a stupid idea. So here's 5 months later, and we can ask, how well has the gasket sealer held up since those 5 months? As you can see, this is the kilometers I'm now sitting at. It's at 430,000. And when you look at the old video, you'll see the kilometers when I had to use a gasket sealer on the bleeder screws. So first thing you'll notice here is that I sealed the bleeder screw all around the bottom of the nut so that no air would get into the bleeder screw and cause a leaky brake issue that I was having. And the way I did it was that I put a little bit of gasket sealer just around the edges inside the bleeder screw, but you don't want to put the gasket sealer all the way to the tip of the screw, bleeder screw. You just want it around the nut area, just to cover any air gap that would force air into the system. So you don't need much to properly seal the bleeder screw, because any excess of gasket sealer and you would jeopardize your whole brake system, because that would likely get into the brake fluid. But if you have just a little bit enough, that's how I did it, and so far it's worked in that way. Now if you decide after 2 years you need to bleed the brakes again, the first thing you can do is just clean out the bleeder screw, unscrew it out, clean the bleeder screw, and inside you could also pump a bit of brake fluid out and do it that way so it stays clean and you can reuse the brakes again, the same caliper. Or if you want, you could uninstall the old brake caliper and bring in a new one, and that would make sure you minimize chance of getting your brake system contaminated. But the best situation would be, if you ever run into this problem and you have the option, it's best to just get a new bleeder screw, which you can usually pick up at your hardware store. But if that option is available, that's probably the best option if you don't want to use gasket sealer. But if you're putting in a new caliper on the other side, then there's a chance that you're going to think if you should bleed the whole brake system, which here I'm going to replace this caliper since this pin is seized, can't turn it. So I'm replacing this caliper, but I only need to bleed this side since this is an independent brake system. Now I can't see the ABS unit here, but I'll pull it up on the screen. So if you have 4 separate lines like this one with your ABS, that means your brake system is independent. So even if I get a new caliper on that right side there on the front, I can just bleed that side and I don't have to bleed the rest of the wheels because it's an independent brake system line. So if you ever need to bleed your brakes again, just keep that in mind so you don't have to do any extra work on the one that you use gasket sealer on. So you can see here I actually had to use gasket sealer again for another brake caliper, which is pretty messed up because this is the second time I'm putting in a new brake caliper and I still had to use gasket sealer to stop any leaks, air bubbles. So I guess it was the right call, me in the first place, to use gasket sealer, because it's 2 times out of 2 doing the brake caliper job that these freaking air bubbles keep leaking. And now I've waited here about 10 minutes and I noticed with the bleeder screw closed, there's no more air bubbles moving on its own. So if you're sitting here 15 minutes and you tighten the screw, nothing's leaking, that's job well done. So basically you can see there's a bit of gasket sealer all around, and you just want to crack it open a bit and put a little bit underneath the nut and bleed it while it's still wet before it dries, before it sets in, and that's it. And then after that you just want to smear all around and let that dry and then check like this. So there you go. If now you see, alright, it's time for a brake check. New caliper in, bled the brakes, and now it's got gasket sealer on both sides of the bleeder screw. So we'll see how the brakes perform right now. Get up to about 60. Oh yeah, that was some good braking. Alright, so there you go. After 5 months, left brake caliper with the gasket sealer is still allowing brakes to function good. I didn't even bleed that side. Right side was bled. So we'll see 5 more months. I'll upload again and see how the kilometers are doing. So I'll see you then.
Automotive for beginners.